Good Saturday evening. I'm meteorologist Frances Payton from 13 News Now with an update of the tropics. We're nearing the peak of hurricane season. Actually, it will be tomorrow. But one thing to note about that peak of hurricane season, as you can see, yes, we're going to see that downtrending in terms of tropical activity. But what you need to know is 60% of our activity does happen after the peak of hurricane season. So we still do have a decent amount of time to go. But let's talk about the tropics. We have two areas of interest. Actually, we have two named storms that we need to talk about. The first will be Tropical Storm Margot. Best news I can bring about Margot, doesn't pose a threat to us here at home or even towards the Caribbean. What we do expect to see, Margot likely becoming our next hurricane. It'll reach Category 1 strength by early next week and then looks to continue just its track throughout the central Atlantic, not posing any threat to land. But a different story. Here we have Hurricane Lee. One thing I'd like to note about Lee's structure, you don't see a well-defined eye wall. Do you remember with that Dahlia, we saw a really well-defined storm? Now, with this system, since it's not too well-defined there, what we can take into account is there might be some disorganization or something working against it. What we've noticed really for this western portion, actually the southwestern portion of the storm, dealing with some wind shear, and that's going to actually help weaken the storm. But this wind shear is only going to stay in effect for so long. So what I mean by that, it has been downgraded to a Category 3 hurricane. That is still major hurricane status. But as that wind shear starts to dissipate, it looks to re-strengthen and reattain that Category 4 strength by Monday. Now, as it starts to curve northward, it'll start to weaken only slightly towards that Category 3 strength. Still, again, we're talking about a major hurricane here that's moving at a slower speed than normal, moving at 10 miles per hour across the North Caribbean. One thing I'd like to note, in terms of the models, we're actually seeing a lot of agreement, and it'll be good news for us here in Hampton Roads. We're seeing the European model keeps the system offshore. There's only two little stragglers there, but a lot of agreement that the system is going to stay offshore and unfortunately impact Bermuda. Similar story with the GFS ensemble. Now, the GFS models didn't really have a lot of agreement earlier this morning. There are a few more systems that took it a little bit closer towards us, or at least towards the eastern coast of the United States. Now, with the 6 o'clock update, we're seeing a lot of these models keep that system offshore and again, keep it closer towards Bermuda. What I really like to show you though is the difference in terms of intensity and as well as where that eye looks to be between the GFS and the European. I think the European does a better job in terms of the timeline because this is a slower moving major hurricane, again, only moving at 10 miles per hour. So I do like the speed of the European, but I like the placement of the GFS, and you'll see what I mean by that. So as we get into Friday of next week, we're seeing that GFS a little bit more northward, but staying relatively further offshore. And then in the following weekend, what we're seeing, the European try and take it a little bit closer than the GFS. So that's something that we will be watching, of course, in the week to come. But best news I can bring is this does stay well offshore, but what we can expect to deal with, unfortunately, beach erosion, especially for our barrier islands throughout the Outer Banks, strong rip current risk, which we've been dealing with for the past week, and some dangerous waves. Tidal flooding is going to stay relatively on the minor side, and the rain that we are dealing with from Saturday into Monday into Tuesday even is coming from a front that's basically stalled out towards our west. Now that front does kick across the region between Wednesday into Thursday, and that will be some good news because that's also going to keep us well protected from Hurricane Lee and start to steer that system away from us, even though that is only a surface level system there. But as far as another thing that we should be worried about coming from Lee, I want to rule out some strong wind gusts, anywhere from 20 to even 25 miles per hour. And we're going to continue to look at some breezy conditions heading into Friday as well, probably even seeing some stronger wind gusts on Friday around 30 miles per hour. So as far as the here and now on that 7-day forecast, we're tracking that front that's going to keep rain chances in the forecast until it finally kicks through again between Wednesday and Thursday. And then for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we're going to be watching the impacts of Lee very closely as it looks to remain offshore. Thanks for sticking with 13 News Now.